It's WG, bring you SMB, and let's talk about the most important subject in the game, and that has to be power. Everything comes down to blood power. So how do you get it? Where do you get it? Which are the most important ones? And also, how do you invest your BP related resources? We are going to go over every single one of these aspects. So let's start off with the very first and also what should be the most obvious aspect. If you're looking to gain more power, making jumps in level do tend to translate pretty much as your main income source of a BP. So for example, we have 12,170 and just by increasing the level by 4, we already gained 700 BP, right? BP also does show, like if you're wondering, how are some heroes so high BP? Look at this. This is a completely ungeared, completely untouched hero, and just because of the fact that they have a level of 140 through the transfusion system, you're already looking at a flat 8,000. So BP is by far the most obvious and by far the easiest to get, and also the one that you should be focusing on the most because it's going to give you the biggest return. After that, we would have to go with gear. So for gear, we already briefly mentioned it, but let's mention it again. When do you level up gear? You can level up gear at any point in time, be it tier 3, gear tier 4, gear tier 5, gear tier 6, gear tier 7 gear. It does not make a difference because experience carries over. So for example, if we were to upgrade this jacket right here to level 1, and then at some point we were going to get another jacket. So let's just pretend this jacket is actually tier 8, then we can take the old jacket and then feed it into the new one. Obviously I swapped it instead of you see what I mean. So we have the new jacket and then we gotta replace this one with the old one, and now I can show you what you wanted to see, and that is you can then take your old piece. And if you compare this level 1 piece to the XP gain from a level 0 piece, same tier, you see that this one gives us 6,400, while this one gives us a grand total of 29,000 something, because it's the 18,000 for the first level and then 17,600 on top. So you can upgrade at any point in time, but what should you upgrade? So what you're going to notice right here and what you've seen before is, for us personally, we always focus on headgear first and after headgear. So headgear first because it has the highest attack stat. The higher your attack stat, the harder your characters get hit, the more relevant it will be for content. So headgear always is number 1 on DPSs, and that's it, right? It is number 1 on DPSs, but DPSs are also the most important part in the game. And then slot number 2 is always going to go to the ring, because again, the ring then has the highest or the second highest attack stat. After that it would go jacket, and then lastly this item down here. So when it comes to gearing priorities, you want to focus head followed by ring for DPSs, and then for tanks, if you ever get to that point that you do have the XP lying around, that you have the solely lying around, you can then start working in reverse order on the HP plus magic defense, followed by the HP, and then the HP, the physical defense plus attack, right? It would be just like you starting right here and then following up with those, because healers, they don't tend to do damage. But in general, just investing raw into ring and headband tends to give you the most results. And then if you have some left over, you can invest in right here. So that is gear, that is pretty straightforward, and that is how you upgrade your gear pieces. Obviously, you should always aim to increase your gear tier so you can get more stats, so you can get more BP. Now let's talk about the next one, and that's going to be artifacts. It is very important that even if the artifact doesn't fit, that you make sure that all your heroes or all your vessels are actually geared with an artifact, because it does add around 400 to 500 BP. So let's say, for example, you have your Stereoid Iona and your Acapella without an artifact, you can just give them whatever, right? Silver Shadow Chronometer would obviously be great if you run with the Bella, because the effect actually triggers, but just the raw BP gain from having these extra stats in HP, attack and defenses is already worth it. So that is what you want to do. Obviously, if you need to know which artifact goes on who, I have a guide on that. You'll be able to find it. So after that, then it's obviously upgrading the level of your artifacts. If you increase your level of your artifacts, obviously they're going to give you more BP. Now, the next one is going to have to be skill levels. And this is something that you should do starting from like day 5, day 6, day 7. And that is, make sure everyone in your main team, so your main team is like your big 5 that you use for like 95 to 97% of content, that you make sure that all these at least have every skill at level 4. Because even though the basic attack is by far the weakest to be upgraded, it still does yield you a significant amount of BP. So making sure that all your skills are on level 4 becomes quite relevant. And then because of the resources being so expensive, you can then do the same thing you did before and only upgrade the truly important specials, the truly important ultimates to level 5. Like for example, the Bella special that boosts her summon stats to level 5, or a acapella ult to 5, then obviously potentially 6 and the like. So yeah, make sure you get towards, you first upgrade the important abilities, then you get towards like a baseline, and then let's have a look at BP. 12,451 to 12,550, which is around 100 BP, and it didn't even cost us any important resources. So make sure you skill everybody up to 4 so you can get some extra power. Next power system, Affinity. Affinity is quite important, and the way you want to utilize Affinity is by the easiest is identifying your main DPS, which for most of you is either currently your Lamia or your Daikalo, and then using the event resources that you've gained, putting them into these characters allows you to massively push the affinity level, which gives you a whole bunch of stats. I mean, 600 attack, that is almost better than our headpiece. And it is, for example, better than our ring. So affinity is quite important, and the way you want to do this is do prioritize DPS over non-DPS when it comes to affinity. And what we are currently doing, if you're wondering why we're holding onto these, is I'm kind of waiting to potentially increase the affinity of the Lorelei or the Bella, depending on their kits, right? But priority always should go to DPSs because they can just do more with the stats. But in general, having your main team on the council, which is this one right here, can also obviously help you because they're going to get passively more stats, passively more BP. So that brings us to the very last point, and to a degree the easiest but also the hardest to get, and that is these like faction specific upgrades. These faction specific upgrades, there's only two ways. Way number one is stupid and you shouldn't do it, and way number two is something that is out of your hands. So way number one would be spending your precious spirit scraps on stacks of these Bloodborne fragments. Trust me, once you start to get past level 10, you are going to pay millions of these spirit scraps if you want to see any return on kingdom fragments, and there it is still way better. And what you should be doing is buying the perfect shards, and you could even wait with opening the perfect shards, which is what we are doing, until Lamia and Daikalo get added to the pool. So ignore the Covenant shop, spirit scraps are for perfect shards, and that only leaves one source and one source only: event shops. Make sure you buy out all these fragments for the event shops, like the Awakening fragments, Bloodborne fragments, Kingdom fragments, Church fragments. All of those contribute towards your total BP power. Like for example, if we check it out, let's take Lamia as an example. Lamia from the normal Awakening fragments, which you also gain through the idol system as random drops, already gains 95 attack and 2000 HP here. Then because she's a light armor unit, she gets another 4200 HP, another 133 physical defense, and then because she's a Bloodborne, she gains an additional 225 attack and 141 magic defense. So these are all the ways in which you can make your character stronger, and the most effective way by far is still going to be leveling. And then after that, it probably is going to, like from raw skill, there is one more, right? There is one more way we do have to talk about. How can we end this video without talking about it? And that is the Siphon system. So for the Siphon system, let's once again reset Daikalo. And let me give you an idea on why the Siphon system is obviously amazing in making your character stronger. but it should not feel as oppressive as you might think as of this moment. So let's take a look. This Dialcalo gains flat stats. This is very important. You see how our Dialcalo here is going to get 108 attack. It is always going to be 108 attack for this next Siphon. That is not going to change. So let's focus on the 108 attack. You can also focus on the other stats, it doesn't matter. 108. Now if we go into this stage right here, we keep in mind we start on 7391, and with the next level up we are already gaining 50 attack. Now we are up to 100, and with just 3 levels of investment we've already gained more stats than we would gain through a Siphon. That doesn't mean you should be not siphoning for popular characters, because it is still a easy source of acquirable power, but you also shouldn't feel crushed by the concept of siphoning and think that that is the end all be all of BP gain, and if you don't fully max all your characters you're never going to mount to anything. So this was all the ways on how you can gain BP and how you can improve your team, and I hope you actually took something away from this, learned a little something, and as always we see each other in the next one. Peace!